All right. And
Hey,
we are, I
no,
can't hear you right now. I can hear you
now you're
now.
back.
Okay,
Okay,
so
you're
now
back.
we have it. Wow. It's been a few weeks since you and I have spoken last.
Yeah, we had a couple
Had a
moving components there.
Yeah, I've been traveling. You've been traveling, and you just had spring break with your kids. Mine comes up in April, but a lot of things have happened in the real estate market that I think that we can't just brush underneath the floor. So a
No,
lot of it
no.
has to do with buyer agency. Now, before we get started, I just want to make sure, for my own good, that anything that you and I discuss here is only our opinion. They're our
Yep.
sole opinion, our personal opinion. It does not represent anyone that we work with or affiliated with or outside of just you and I. These are just executing our First Amendment rights in regards to freedom of speech and giving our own opinion.
Well played.
Yeah, well played. That was a pretty good disclosure on.
These are my First Amendment rights as a sovereign citizen. No,
So I've
but
had you and I have had a lot of talks about this um, over the years. Probably not so much on our channel here, but we've talked about this. You come from the mortgage side. I've come from the real estate side. I started my real estate career in Salt Lake City, Utah, and that was in like 1998. And I remember at that time that that's about when buyer agency came to Utah.
hmm,
And, some of the things that I talked to um, other agents about, they feel like the sky is falling. And now back then, I've had 26 years of understanding buyer agency. It's just, it's ingrained. And
right.
so I haven't been seeing the whole big deal, but I did have a colleague, had a conversation with a colleague, and there are states who have no buyer agency. And so while to me, I remember the sky was falling, wasn't for me. I was too young and too new. Plus, I probably still wouldn't have cared much. I've always been a fan of don't focus on the things that you can't control. Focus on the things that you can control, and that's
Right.
the actions that you do. And well, I think you and I can talk about that today. But um, for some people, the sky is falling. They're freaking out. You're seeing all the stuff in the media about this is the end to the way buyer commissions is. This is the end of this. Agents are getting out. It's weird. But number one, it's proposed. Number two, I think it doesn't even like go into effect till like August. I mean, there's a lot of time
Yeah.
between now and then. So I don't know. I think that I'd like to hear what you think. What's your point of view on this?
Um, well, there's I have a tons of thoughts on like many different facets from like existing people and like how the response to it to also like where I think things, how it might kind of shape things. Um, and I completely like wholeheartedly agree with like focusing in on the things that you can control. I think there's a good, I don't think having more structure and process to the purchase process or to working with buyers is a bad thing. I think having people to have more like not just winging it, like I'll work for you type of a deal and we'll go find some houses. Like, I think that's actually really good to have some sort of more like framework of a structure for agents coming into the business. Now for people who might have just been riding the last like wave of like good market where they just were along for the ride. Obviously, nobody likes change, right?
No one
Period.
does.
Across the board, nobody likes change. How this is going to shape out in regards to deals actually getting done? Is it just going to be, is it going to be something that's just kind of like baked into the paperwork case where it's like we offer sick concessions and now it's just, how is it, written up on the agreement and the closing stuff? Um, so, but so that's like, is it just business as usual and now it's just more of a paperwork thing? Or is this, so there's that side of me that like has that thought. And then there's a whole nother side of me that's like, this is a larger effort to kind of cut down on margins, consolidate purchasing power to like maybe a few big players, like, um, which I think it's hard for me to imagine that some sort of like big tech doesn't come out of this in regards to like, maybe baking in the purchase process into the financing and having it more and having something there that is more, so my marketing brain is like, oh, I very easily could incorporate some of my AI sales stuff, generate buyer leads, have people go through the process of getting qualified and then sending them to like a list of open houses.
I was speaking at a local event yesterday, local office meeting. There's like 60 some odd people there, which I was pretty impressed with because that's like 90% of their office. So it's always nice
Like,
when you
wow.
go somewhere and you get a big turnout. Um, and I've shared this story with you, I think, but it's from one of our mentors. I think Jim Rohn is also one of your mentors. He's probably a lot of people's mentors. For those of you that don't know who Jim Rohn is, it's Rohn. It's the late Jim Rohn, and same era as Zig Ziglar. Him and Zig Ziglar were pals. And if you don't know who that is, then you just haven't been in sales very long.
The
Um,
little red book.
yeah. So, but Jim, I always end. I've been ending, and it's always relevant. Like I started ending with a story that Jim Rohn told a few years ago, but it wasn't based off of this. It was based off of market changes. It was based off the lower inventory. And what Jim says is that the same wind blows on us all. And he
Hmm.
talks about us all being out in the middle of the ocean, little sailboats, and off into the horizon. You have your goals, your dreams, your aspirations. They're somewhere off in the horizon that you can't see. And he says that the same wind blows on us all, in referencing the economic wind, the political wind, the social wind, the high interest
Right.
rates wind, the low inventory wind, this whole NAR settlement wind. The same wind blows on all of us. And he says that the difference in arrival to you and your goals, your dreams, your aspirations in the next 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, the difference in arrival is not the blowing of the wind, it's the set of your sail. And he goes on to say that that's what learning's all about, to build a better sail this year than last year. And I
Right.
found that very interesting. Well, not in, I've always found it very interesting, but what I had said to this group, I said, look, we're all seeing it. It's all affecting it. This is the wind blowing. This is
Right.
the Santa Ana winds coming into to us. And there are people who are just freaking out and they're scared and they're worried about doom and gloom and they're starting to prep and they're looking for, but there are the other people, the minority, they're like, okay, nothing I can do about the wind, completely out of my control, but what I am in charge of is let me set my sail. Let me
Hmm.
reset my sail. And I do think that there are opportunities for, like, I'm still not freaking out. I'm still not freaking out because as I understand it in my non-legal mind, it's written kind of in plain language. I mean, you can't go anywhere without seeing somebody talk about something with it. Is that the MLS is no longer going to put in offers of compensation. Doesn't say the seller can't offer compensation. It just says it can't be
Right.
promoted through the MLS. But if the brokers want to promote that through a different website, their own website, then they're free to do so. Okay.
Hmm.
Or, the other thing I see is about VA. I'm a veteran. I've used the VA loan because you can use it. You can use it, pay it off, use it, pay it off, use it, pay it off. It's a great loan. I've used it like 3 times in my lifetime. Well, the VA says that the buyer, the veteran, cannot pay a commission. Okay. So what happens is that the buyer agent, they need to call and pick up the phone and talk to the listing agent and say, hey, this is what's happening. Is your seller willing to pay, whatever it may be as far as a commission? So, the NAR is not a governing authority. They're not legislation.
Right.
A lot of these things that I'm reading is a lot of that doesn't make any sense to me. And it could be coming from somebody who's not very, seasoned in real estate. I don't know. I'm not making any judgments. But I don't see this as a nail in a coffin. If
Right.
anything, I see this, number one, if you're worried about it, list more houses. Point becomes
Yeah.
obsolete. But number two is if in fact there's an agent who has gotten, every buyer agency that I'm familiar with, been licensed in 4 states, has always said you've always had to get buyer agency, you've always had to set your price, and then any compensation that came from the seller acted as a credit to yours, and that the seller may have to come in or more. Now, what I used to do is if I got more of a commission, that would act as a refund to them. If it was less, then that'd actually come up with another charge. Or I could elect not to do a charge back, right? So there's a lot of negotiation that can come in, but I don't see this from my own personal standpoint. And I recognize the fear for people who do not come from a buyer agency background.
Right.
Look, yeah, we're going to have to adjust. Some people aren't going to be able to adjust. Some people are going to be frozen stiff, and that's look, the market has already contracted anyway since pre-COVID, so that was already on the way. But I do think that people who have made a career out of buyer agency, and that career is always saying that your fee is free, I
Right.
do think that there will be challenges. I also think that those who are career listing agents or have a background in listing agent that is accustomed to the process of explaining their value and services and actually closing on them with a fee and a signature, I think that they're going to be able to adapt much easier than
Right.
someone who hasn't. So yeah, for me, I just I don't understand it. I recognize it. I guess I can have empathy, but for me, I'm encouraging people just to wake up. The sun's going to rise
Yeah.
tomorrow, and just adjust for the business. This is what business is about. Things always change.
100%.
Let's parlay a little bit. I want to bring something up to you because you have probably said this to me, is that we've always talked about growing your database and having your list. Don't put all your eggs into social media. Don't put all your eggs into Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads or YouTube,
Right.
because in a fraction of a second that could change and that could decimate your business. So this is kind of like a parallel situation, and we could use this as an example of why you don't put all your eggs in one basket.
This is, I mean, in real estate, there's only, there's 2 sides to the transaction. Either you're on the buy side or the sell side. So there's not, I mean, they have limited strategies to kind of like approach a situation like this. So if you're just completely a buyer agent and your hook is I work for free, yeah, like that's, I mean, but at the same time, I mean, in my humble opinion, like if you can't explain the value that you bring, how much value are you really bringing? Like
Agreed.
if you can't articulate that in a manner of that's convincing to somebody that is shopping for a home, like maybe you shouldn't be in the business, right? So I mean, there's what, like 50% of agents out there have done 1 or fewer deals in the past 12 months.
I mean, and it's probably a buyer.
You
I
know,
would venture to guess, not factual, but my guess is for those who do the onesie twosies, they're not the ones who are focusing on the listing based business. So it's going to be
but
challenging.
that's okay. Long term, I think this is good for people, especially people getting into the business, because it will force them to like focus on explaining their value and having a more standardized process in place for getting buyers. For me, as like somebody who's helps people generate leads and get more business, like to me, it was like it makes that like the process of generating leads so much better because you have a step in between buying a house and like getting a good qualified lead. Like you have something tangible that people can attach to where it's like, I got another contract. Like I started, and I'm just thinking about this in the frame of like helping people generate leads. Like, because a lot of times those leads that people generate online, like they don't convert for 60, 90, 120 days, sometimes even long. I mean,
Yeah.
significantly longer. But if they have the like if they have the capacity to have a conversation and get a contract from somebody within the first, within a matter of weeks, like it becomes much more, I think it will become much more tangible to people, um, newer agents, and help with attrition right there because they're like see it, they're like, I got 6 contracts already in my first like X number of weeks of being, an active agent type of a deal. So anyway, just rambling. So
No,
long
all
term.
valid points. I look at the listing side process and the buyer side process as mirror images. They're
Mhm.
two sides of the same coin. There's really no difference. In fact, some of the things that I coach and train on is that your next listing or buyer presentation, it's already began because that's the way that modern consumer journey
Right.
happens. Is that the consumer, they're already, anytime a stimulus enters somebody's mind, according to Google 12 years ago, the very first thing they're going to do is search it. In fact, we look at the NAR data as far as the profile of home buyers and sellers. We see that nearly 50% of all buyers start their home search online. We see that nearly 100% of all buyers use the internet as a resource for it. We know that nearly 80% of all sellers, 8 in 10, only list with one agent. And we also know that the reason why people work with their agent is because they know them, like them, and trust them. So we
Right.
take all of that data into place and we recognize that where are people getting to know, like, and trust these agents? Well, they're getting to know, like them, and trust them by the information they're finding on Google. And Google 12 years ago said that 88% of all consumers, this is in their Zero Moment of Truth ebook. This is on my mind because I just spoke
Mhm.
on it yesterday. So the only reason why I have these numbers like readily available right now is because I always speak on
I'm-
it. But they said 12 years ago, they said 88% of consumers, they've already made the buying decision on who they're going to work with, what they're going to buy before they actually speak with someone.
right.
So if you think about that, like when I wanted to get my Tesla, I did a tremendous amount of research on that, probably more than anyone. And by the time I actually was ready to engage, I've already made the decision that I was going to buy it. The
Right.
same thing happens with batteries. The same things happens with restaurants, with shoes, and everything. So I think that there's an opportunity, especially for someone like you who focuses on helping people generate leads. I think there's an opportunity to really, it's an opportunity for people who actually treat this like a business.
Right.
And anytime when you promote your service for free, that is not a business. That is a nonprofit organization. So if you're going to treat this like a business, you need to follow the same process as a listing agent would. It's already started. You need to promote your value. You need to differentiate yourself. You need to focus on who is your ideal client and go from there. So that was end of my rant.
That's a good one.
End of my rant. Well, look, we're at the 20-minute mark. I have 9:04 Pacific time, so I think there's more to come on this. But I think the one thing that I'm going to ask people to take away with is just look, this is business. Figure it out. History's proven that in any economic cycle, there's been so much change, but history has proven that homes will still sell.
Yep.
Our job as a entrepreneur is to figure out how to be on one side of that equation.
Amen. Business is not a finite game, it's an infinite game, and the goal is to keep playing.
Ooh, I like that. Stealing that one.
Absolutely.
All right, my friend. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. And Luke, I'll see you next week.
Adios, my friend.